Hello everybody, and welcome back to part 2 of my tour of BFun's Ragnarok Resort, which is my base here on the Ragnarok server hosted by BoringLP. Speaking of which, I forgot to mention in my first episode that down in my description I will have links to all the other IronMiners here participating on the server. So if you're interested to see what some of the other guys and gals are up to, by all means check out their links if you haven't already. We got some really talented builders and some fun adventures going on all over the map. All right, let's jump right on into this because I have a lot to cover in this episode if I'm going to get through this whole tour in 3 episodes. Oh, and that reminds me, if you haven't watched the first episode, I really recommend you do so that you have the continuity of the full tour. Okay, so we left off in part 1 right here at my garden workshop. So this is my greenhouse and my industrial kitchen equipment and my workshop all housed together under this lovely skylight that gives us a beautiful view of the waterfall and some nice lighting in here. This is a pretty typical greenhouse for me. I like to do a couple of each crop with some extra carrots because I tend to go through more of those. And then I'll do 1 each of the primary berries, and I usually start out with 4 narcoberry plots. Because early game, of course I want to make a lot of narcotics, but once I have done that and I've leveled up, I got darts and a decent long neck, then I will often change these out for other crops that I need more of later on. In this case, stimberries, since I'm now taking advantage of being able to cook up all the stews and brews in the game. And then I have the industrial cooker for doing that, and a industrial grill, and some storage. And I originally had 2 preserving bins there, but once I got electricity, of course, I changed one of those out for a refrigerator, which is nicely powered by this lovely S Plus generator that is silent and fits well under the stairs. Oh, look, I still have my original cooker back there. And then upstairs, I have my little workshop, which used to be a little bit smaller than this. Originally, that wall came all the way straight up. But once I leveled up to a chemistry bench, needed a little bit more room, I pushed the front out another foundation and a half. So that gives me an extra foundation width inside and a nice little half balcony around here that I can put more crafting tables on for storage. I use these for bulk storage going in and out of the workshop. There's a couple out here. And then, so now I have plenty of room in here for my chemistry bench and, of course, a fabricator. And I do keep a forge in here, even though I have an industrial forge up in the metalworks. There's a couple nodes that normally spawn right outside here. I'll harvest into here. And that gives me enough metal to keep repairs going and maybe light crafting. But if I got a really big crafting project with metal, I'll either take it up there where I have a smithy, or I'll bring the metal down here. And then, of course, I have a smithy here with my little workshop buddy on it. And then these 2 I use just to store my gear, armor and weapons and all that, which I like to keep organized in folders now that folders work well in the game, or pretty well. And then this is some more specific storage for things that I want to keep separated, or I don't use that much of. And then this is the Structures Plus bookshelf for storing your blueprints and recipes. It's really nice because it has 600 slots, so you don't run out like you do with the vanilla one. And I use the same methodology for organizing everything. And then I can reach most of the containers that I need to get to with some regularity out through the window, which is cool. And then this thing is the new converter from Structures Plus, and as the hologram implies, it will convert structure components, building parts, essentially, back and forth between the vanilla or the Structures Plus equivalent, either direction. So as long as there's a equivalent either way, it will convert it back and forth, which is pretty neat. I've used it a few times. It works great. So that's my little workshop. Very functional. I love this workshop. It's one of my favorite workshop builds I've ever done. Just seems to work really well. I don't have to do a lot of running around. Everything's at my fingertips. So works out very good. And this is, and if you're wondering what this is for, that door, I originally had the vanilla staircase here that you fall off of all the time and get stuck in the corner, so that was a way to get out. I don't really need it anymore, but I haven't changed it. And then once I kind of outgrew the fridge in there, so I put a couple more out here on the porch to keep more stuff in, lots of eggs and food. Oh, and because we of course have all the scorched earth assets on the Ragnarok map, we're able to have preserving salt, which is very nice. So this is representative of the type of building I like to do typically. I'm not a builder of really big... Okay, well, as I say that, I have a lot going on in this cave, but what I was going to say was I don't usually build really huge buildings that end up being, 10% of the space you actually need and 90% just empty space you don't really need, and all it ends up doing is, impacting your frame rate, which would be even worse here because my frame rate's bad enough already with all this stuff. Okay, so let's run on down to the next area. So I got a little parking area here for my griffins. Oh, and that, if you don't know about this thing is great addition. The hitching post from Structures Plus, which allows you, as you can see, to tie your dinos down so they will not randomly run off, as sometimes happens. All right, so we'll head on down the grand staircase here to my Taming and Breeding Center. Now, this is one of the first things I built here in the cave, and is probably the most successful part of the build in many ways. I really like the way this turned out and has been very useful. So I put in a couple of taming pens, one for the big guys that cannot get through doorways. It makes it a little easier to shoot them. And then for the smaller ones that can, I put in windows. And then for that one, I put a little balcony here, shooting gallery, so it's easier to trank them. And then, as needed, I can subdivide this into little compartments when we're doing some breeding with smaller critters. In this case, we're trying out some breeding with otters. And then for hatching, we got, of course, air conditioners over here and a refrigerator to keep our taming food and imprinting kibble in. And then I keep the generator out there that I can access through the window. Kind of keeps it out of reach of wilds before they're tamed. And a little storage and some water. And then this is what's really cool about this. Right out the back here, it backs up to the waterway here, where there's this nice little shallow shelf that allows you can bring, see I got a bunch of sharks and stuff down there. You can bring them up here and breed them. And then you got a nice place when the young are born to keep them at hand while you're raising them, and easy access to the imprinting kibble. So really like this, and I think if you're building in the cave here, or going to, this is really the ideal place to put a breeding center or taming center or both. And I don't actually use it that much for taming. I still do a lot of taming in the wild, but occasionally, you want to just bring them back and drop them in. That's great, especially if you want to do a couple at once, so that you can make better use of your time. And you can see we got a couple little breeding projects going here. A couple of the other members on the server here and I have been working on some Therazinos, and I've also been trying to breed up the Super Bear, and this is the best I've done so far, which is now up to 310. Pretty good, but you can take a look at the stats if you want there. And then over here, it's just a little pen to keep beetles in, and Achatina, if I ever do get some. I haven't got any yet. But what I didn't mention in the first episode, I talked about the Structures Plus item collector, and I have compost bins over there for the fertilizer. The better way to use that device is with beetles, because then it's really more fully automated. You don't have to worry about thatch. And I would, except the only problem is this, as it turned out, this little pen I built is just slightly out of range of that collector. So I need to move that over there eventually, and then I won't have to worry about the compost bins anymore. But definitely a couple beetles and you're good to go. Everything's automated in the fertilizer department. And then of course got a little sheep station here back behind the guest parking with a crazy amount of wool now. I have, these are all full. I have over 200,000 wool as a result of the S+, what's that character called? The sheep herder, which is, he's probably, of all the things that S+ is accused of being OP, that guy is probably top of the list. He is awesome. Now, he's not really OP. He doesn't make any more than you could make. He's just very efficient at shearing the sheep as soon as they're available for reshearing. So, but on the other hand, he does store meat as well as a refrigerator without electricity or any of that stuff. So that part of it might be a little OP. So this is my dock for my boats, now plural. This was my original raft, the first thing I built when we joined the server. But as it turned out, I think a couple of weeks after we started, they introduced the leads. So this guy had a short life out on the ocean, but I'd found the cave by then, so it has lived safely ever after here in the cave. But now that we have motorboats, of course, and my understanding is we got an update coming that is going to reduce the threat of leads, which is going to make rafts relevant again, which I really like, because I really like rafts. I think they're a great way to enjoy playing the game, and it was too bad when they were too risky to use, but that's apparently going to change, which is cool because I think I got 3 rafts that I like to build early game, and I'll probably do an episode on those, so I'm not going to do that now, talk about these at all. That's the motorboat I built for the race we had, I mentioned in the first episode, so we'll take a look at that at another time too. Alright, let's jump on green jeans here so we can cover some more ground, and we'll move on down the boardwalk and try and keep it rolling here. So most of these are for egg production, and I built this little dino platform here to make more efficient use of space because I have a ton of tames. So I quite like cats, so I got a little cat platform here, and also bears. Probably still my favorite land mount in the game, although Thylas really are giving them a run for their money, but so far I'm still enjoying bears a lot. And then upstairs I got my bird perch, which as you can see I got a ton of birds on. And then of course I got a bunch of quetzals, all with their specific purpose, and again another episode I'll probably go over some of these builds. And a more recent addition, this ice wyvern here. Okay, so a little bit further down the boardwalk here, we get to a new area that I have developed. So this is the guest dock I put in right off the bat on this little island over here. This is actually a separate little island in the middle of the water over there. But I just recently added the Jungle Island Bar, which is kind of fun. So once we had, the eco mod, we could really have some fun with landscaping. Because normally there is nothing else, as I mentioned earlier, nothing else in this cave except for that tree over there by the Cavern Tavern. So I was able to plant some nice landscaping here. This is one of my favorite trees on the map, the Chinese banyan. So with her mod, I can kind of create this transition into the jungle environment from the rather barren rock environment of the cave. And over here we got my new Jungle Island Bar. So you can come over here, get away from the hustle and bustle of the center part of the cave, and get a drink here at the Tiki Bar. And then you can come over here and light a bonfire and sit and relax in one of these nice little cabanas. So I put 3 of those in, and got a little extra seating here in case we're going to have a big group event. And then down here I got a little fun little boardwalk along the edge of the island that takes you down to some more seating. And over here is a little viewpoint where you can see up the channel. This is one of the other ways into the cave. So this is the way in by water. this little channel that goes out there. You can see I got a gate there, which I didn't have, as I mentioned in the first episode, I didn't have it for like 4 or 5 months and didn't have a problem with anything coming in here. Although I did put in, let's see if I can find them. I put in some plant species X right there and there with the idea that if anything did come down, they could kind of take it out before it made it into the cave. And if they didn't, there's a couple more behind me. But it's actually pretty safe. Very little. I've never really had an issue with that. But I did put in a gate just to be sure. And that makes it very safe in here. And it's a behemoth gate. You can see it really pretty well fills the gap there. There's a few foundations underneath you need and a wall on one side. And I'll show you that later. So it's really easy to protect this cave from those two entrances. And then up here in the tree, another one of these Chinese banyan trees from Eco. I got some more seating in this little like treehouse arrangement. Little seating here. And then I got 3 levels here. Up at the very top, we got a little bit more space here with a little table going and someone apparently studying up on the dossier. And then down at the mid-level here, this is actually one of my favorite places in the cave now. This nice little spot where you can sit, relax with 4 or 5 of your friends and regale each other with tales of adventure here on Ragnarok. And then down below here, we got the guest dock. So if you're on the server here and you got a boat, you want to come on in here with your boat and have a few days of R&R, you can sail on in and tie up at the guest dock, as Kimmy has done here with her motorboat race entry, and have your own little spot to relax for a few days. So I've got some seating here for the guests and a little storage. And then over here is a couple more of those plant species X that are protecting the cave. And I'm probably going to do, I've decided I'm going to do another guest dock over here since, like I said, since rafts are going to be more relevant now, we'll probably be seeing more of those. I'll probably need a little more space in here for them. All right, so let's run back across and a couple more things to show you before we wind up this episode. Go back across the bridge here. And we'll go take a look at my little, what I call my building center. So down at the foot of the stairs here, that go up to the inn, I needed a little base to anchor them to. So I kind of expanded that out and made a little, what I call my building center here. Some of you Yanks might get that. So I do all my building component crafting in here, and I'll show you why. So I got the, of course, the Structures Plus crafting table, and then these are all the crafting tables from the Eco mods. As I mentioned before, they're very neat because they all are decorative props that you can use in your build as decorations, as well as being the crafting table. So that's the food tray for all the food-related items and kitchen stuff. That's the RP Decor mod crafting table. And the food tray is part of that, comes with that one. And then this is her Eco Trees landscaping crafting station. And this is the garden decor crafting station for all the things like fences and fountains and garden lighting, of which I've used quite a bit of around the build here. And then over on this side is her redwood trees crafting station for crafting her placeable redwood trees and the tree platforms. You have to use her platforms on her trees. And one thing that's kind of cool, she has 4 snap points on every one of her trees. And then she also has a separate sap tap you have to use on her trees. So that's my little building center. And the reason I put it down here is because of this, and this is one of the things I really like about this cave, is this nice big flat area out here, which gives you a great place free of predators while you're doing these, while you're practicing builds or testing build ideas, or even doing complete builds. So I have a chalet up in the Murder Snow portion of the snow biome that I built right here. The whole thing was put together right in this spot, and I'll throw up a screenshot of that. And then Monkey Puzzle joined me, and also Kimmy from the server, And we took the whole thing apart piece by piece, packed it up on a bunch of bears, and then did a big overland trek all the way around the map down to the redwoods where I have a little base set up. And then we jumped on a Paraceratherium I have over there with a build on it similar to that one on the Quetzal, but with the addition of 4 fireplaces so that we could stay warm enough. And we trekked up into the snow and found a nice location up in Murder and reassembled the entire chalet on site. So Monkey Puzzle actually did a 4-part episode on that whole adventure. I'm pretty sure it was his episodes 14 through 17 from his series here on the server. If you haven't seen those, by all means, go check them out. We just had a great time. It was a real fun adventure and a really successful adventure as well. So a really cool thing about this cave is being able to do that sort of thing. All right, so let's wind this up. And we'll run over here and I'll give you a little teaser for what we're going to do in part 3. So we will start here at the swamp, which is my most recent addition here at the resort. So we'll take a look at that. And then we'll run around to the back of the cave and see the metalworks quickly before we head on up to the Waterfall Inn and cabins. And I'll give you a complete tour of all that, including all the remodeling and decorating I've done with all the great stuff from Eco's Mods. So looking forward to that. I hope you're enjoying the tour, and hope to see you back here for part 3. Thanks for watching all the way through, and until then, bye-bye for now.